G'day, I'm Mark from Self-Sufficient Me, and in this video I'm going to show you why direct sow is the way to go. Let's get into it. Direct sowing is when you sow seeds into the garden bed directly where they are to grow, instead of germinating the seed and raising the seedling in a tray or punnet, usually within a protected environment such as a greenhouse. I do understand that there are legitimate reasons why people sow seeds in smaller pots first. I mean, I've got some quick examples. This cabbage here, I'll talk about that later. These strawberries here, well, they're a really tiny seed, and it's the first time I've tried to grow strawberries from seed, so I wanted to try to control this as best as I could without being out in the wild and getting overtaken by other types of seeds like weeds. But I get the feeling that a lot of new gardeners think that the best way for all food crops is to sow them in punnets or trays, and that's not the case at all. A good example is large-scale farming. They're into making money, so it's common practice to sow seed directly wherever possible because limiting double handling is cost-effective. On the other hand, some farms transplant seedlings because it's more reliable, depending on the type of crop and also the machinery being used for mechanical mass planting. However, in the home garden, we have several advantages over big business. We don't have big overheads. We're not growing for the masses. We can adapt fast to changes or conditions, and we're flexible on the type of product we grow to eat. Thinning out lettuces or rearranging plants in a raised garden bed at home isn't a big deal, but it's a waste of manpower for a large farm. I've got my little dipper tool here, or my pricking out. Get a little seedling and just dig underneath it like that. This isn't a really purpose-made tool. This is just a screwdriver or a socket tool for a chainsaw. And just dig under like that. Take as much of the root ball, of course, as you can, but these seedlings are so young, transplant shock isn't too bad, especially if it's just being moved around in roughly the same location. And then find another little spot that's a gap maybe. Dig that out and put him in. Cover back over, pat down, give that a bit of a water, and that's all that needs to be done. We can oversow and then harvest baby greens, then let the remaining plants mature. Big farms can't be as flexible. They are often contracted by supermarkets to provide a consistent, uniform product, whereas we don't have those pressures. In this bed here, we've got far too much lettuce and kale coming up, but that's not going to be a drama because, like I just said, we can harvest these plants as they're growing and then leave space for the rest of them to grow into mature plants. Pretty much all vegetables can be directly sown where they are to grow. Before sowing in punnets or trays, first consider if this crop can be directly sown, and if it can, do that. Why? Direct sowing is so easy. Sprinkle, then lightly cover or push the seeds into the ground exactly where they are to grow. Raising seedlings is an extra step that can have its own issues and failures, making a simple process of growing a plant from seed unnecessarily complex. It saves on resources such as seed raising mix. I shouldn't have wasted that. You avoid leggy, sickly seedlings due to indoor growth or lack of sun and nutrients. The plants grow faster because the roots are not disturbed through the process of transplanting. A common reason for sowing into pots first is to get a head start on the season. But what can happen is a plant transplanted into the garden won't grow as well as one that's just planted by seed directly, because the transplant has to harden off or get used to the new location and re-establish its root growth after getting over transplant shock. Whereas the seed-grown plant is free to put down its base and continue to grow as the weather warms up or the conditions improve for it. Personally, if I lived in a really cold climate, and we don't, I would be experimenting with one of those portable cold frames to place over plants like tomatoes so they can be grown in situ. But I must admit, I don't have a lot of experience with growing in the cold. So feel free to educate me below in the comments section on the use of cold frames, mini hoop houses, mini hothouses, mini greenhouses over garden beds, and what you think of that idea. Of course I get the challenges of cold climates and places with short growing seasons. Don't think I don't. And I too am forced to sometimes quickly adapt to pests or animals like visits from friendly field mice. Yeah, I'm sad to admit that I was outsmarted just recently once again by a mouse chewing through, this time, our cabbage seedlings that were here. So I took action covering them with mini mesh cages, but the damage was done, so I decided to dig them up, salvage what seedlings I could for transplanting elsewhere when they get bigger and less of a target. I've since sown carrots around the outside and celeriac in the middle here, but I don't know what the obsession was with the cabbage, because it didn't touch the kale, which is over here, and that's a member of the cabbage family, pretty much tastes quite similar. All these zucchinis, which he targeted last season over in that bed, not touching them at all. And then of course there's the odd time when it might be useful to grow in punnets or trays when you haven't finished building your garden beds. So yes, there's a place for sowing seeds indoors or elsewhere in trays or punnets. But what I'm saying is, if you can directly sow into the garden, do it. Because in my opinion, this is the best way for most people to grow vegetables. What do you think of direct sowing? Do you mostly direct sow into garden beds like I do? Or do you transplant out? I'd like to know your knowledge, thoughts or questions in the comments section below. If you like this video, make sure you give me a direct thumbs up, directly. Thanks a lot for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Bye for now. Now, is there any more gaps to fill? Where's my chainsaw dipper?